Good morning. Welcome to today's webinar. Our topic today is best practice secrets on background screening for optimal program results. I'm Cynthia Woods. I'm the Vice President of Marketing at AccuSource HR, and I will be your moderator today. So on our agenda today, we will be covering these top topics. So strategies to reduce screening turnaround times, cost-effective alternatives for verification or VOE database access, leveraging technology for streamlined processes, and finally, we'll wrap up with enhancing candidate experience and building trust with those candidates. With me today, I have three amazing panelists. So our first panelist is Heidi Clemens. Heidi joined AccuSource HR in 2022. She has over 20 years of industry experience and has served in a multitude of functional roles, providing her with a high breadth of knowledge in screening operations and diverse client program needs. Heidi leads the AccuSource HR implementation team, and she ensures that clients have a smooth transition from their initial contracting all the way through their go live. Heidi holds a Bachelor of Science degree in Finance and Marketing, and she is a member of the Professional Background Screening Association, PBSA, and she currently serves on the Industry Practices Committee. Additionally, Heidi holds FCRA Core certification. We also have with us today Nancy Golden. Nancy Golden is the Vice President of Verifications at AccuSource HR. She has been with AccuSource HR since 2017. However, she has continuously worked in the drug and background screening industry since 1992. Yes, she started when she was just a young girl. Nancy has been in leadership roles for over 20 years. She strives to ensure quality client experiences, operational efficiency, and overall program optimization. Nancy also consistently provides customers with solutions to challenges and frequently partners with program stakeholders to develop processes addressing unique organizational needs. Nancy is also a longstanding member of the Professional Background Screeners Association, and she also holds FCRA Core certification. And finally, rounding out our panel today, we have Shannon Jordan. Shannon Jordan is the Vice President of Customer Success with AccuSource HR. Shannon has been in the customer experience industry for more than 20 years. She has over 18 years dedicated to the background screening industry alone. She is a recognized subject matter in regulated industries and Fair Credit Reporting Act compliance. Shannon is passionate about customer service and employment screening, and she consistently strives to deliver best-in-class service and individualized client care. Shannon is also a member of the Professional Background Screeners Association and similarly holds FCRA Core certification. So before we move in to our discussion, we do need to provide a little legal disclaimer. So the purpose of our discussion today is for informational purposes. It is not or should not be construed as specific legal advice for your organization. We highly recommend that if you are going to make any legal changes to your program, that you do discuss them directly with your employment law attorney to ensure that they are appropriate for your jurisdiction. So moving forward, our first topic that we're going to discuss today is strategies to reduce screening turnaround times. So before we jump into this category, we'd like to do a little bit of a poll question just to kind of see how turnaround times impact your organization. So our current question is, how impactful is the current turnaround time required to complete an employment background screen on your onboarding processes? And your options are, it's not impactful, screens are completed in a timely manner, it's somewhat impactful, delays occur occasionally, or it's very impactful and delays are frequent and disruptive. So let's give everyone just a second to lock in their answers. And then Danielle, if you want to go ahead and share that response. By the way, when I refer to Danielle, Danielle is our behind the scenes person who is driving our deck today. So it appears that that for almost everyone, that that your turnaround times are somewhat impactful and that delays do occur occasionally, and that can impact your onboarding processes. So we're going to go ahead and ask Nancy, what are some ways that clients can actually mitigate some of those turnaround time delays and how they might be able to work as efficiently as possible?
Certainly. It all starts with the very beginning, your candidate. Ensuring that your candidate has good, clear information of what may be required as part of the background check, giving them guidelines of the timeline for the background check, how long that background check may take, so that you're setting that expectation up front for the candidate. And then likewise, you're following through when you're collecting information from your candidate. You're asking your candidate to provide full and complete information. This information is vital to completing the background process. If you're processing a criminal search, you're going to need the applicant's full information. You're going to need their name, you're going to need their date of birth in order to complete that service. So ensuring that the candidate is providing that up front through the collection of data process will ensure that as that particular service is being completed, all the information is provided to be able to complete those results and be able to return that in a timely manner. So applicant communication or candidate communication is vital, but also ensuring that your candidate provides all that information up front to be able to collect that information to process the screen will ensure a timelier process.
That's great feedback, Nancy. How about you, Shannon? With all of your experience in customer success, I'm sure that you've got some great tips for reducing those turnaround times.
Sure, of course. Something to consider is, as we talk about the candidate's process and everything for providing the information that's needed, ensuring, as Nancy mentioned, that they know exactly what to expect and the timeframes and the details. But does your screening provider allow for customizing messages to them? So the information that goes out to them, can they customize that language to help with those expectations? So that would be important. Setting the expectations for them on the response times that you expect, right? So if they're getting an email from your screening provider to start that process, make sure they understand how long they have to do that and what you expect from them in that time frame. If they're getting requests for additional information from the screening provider, make sure that they are looking for that information and responding to those in a timely manner. Their drug tests, that sort of thing. You want to make sure that in that same process, you understand that methodology for them as well, and consider the timing of the invite process. So if you are using an invite process through your screening provider, how long are you giving them? How long is the screening provider giving them in that process? Maybe consider reducing that time frame to reduce your overall time frame. Because if you give them, for example, 15 days to complete that data entry process or to complete that drug screen, they may very well take 15 days, which is going to increase your overall turnaround time on everything. You also want to consider the delivery methods of how they're getting that information from your screening provider. So, obviously in today's world, email does work. They get email information, but everybody lives on their phones. So does your screening provider have the ability to send a text message with those invites so that they can use a fully optimized system and complete that data entry and compliance in a faster method for you? And the other thing would be to consider the timing that you're submitting that information to your provider, right? So if you're submitting that information earlier in the day or earlier in the week to them, that can reduce the turnaround time you're getting as well, because courts, schools, businesses are only open certain hours and not open on the weekends at times. So getting them to complete that information earlier in the day and submit it over earlier in the day or earlier in the week can also help to prevent longer turnaround times.
Thanks, Shannon. Those are some very, very good tips. And yes, I know just from my own staff, they live on their cell phones. And so texting someone is a really great tip because a lot of times they will see that text so much faster. Well, let's go ahead and go on to our next discussion question. So our next topic is cost-effective alternatives to VOE or verification of employment database access. A lot of us have seen rising cost of these database accesses, and a lot of employers see the value in outsourcing their verification of employment, but those costs, to employers when they're actually conducting, when they're actually running an employment background screen on someone can be quite heavy. And so we'll take a look at some options. So let's go ahead and go to our first poll question for this topic. So our poll question is, what impact has the rising cost of verification of employment or VOE database access fees had on your screening program? And the options are no impact, VOE is not included in my screening program, that the organization has increased budget to accommodate VOE costs, so it's impactful, but we've been able to address it with budget increases, or that it has become so costly that employment verification has been discontinued due to the rising cost. So we'll give just a moment for everyone to put their answers in. And then Danielle, if you want to go ahead and show the response there. So we are looking at about 100% of people are not using verification of employment databases in their screening programs. And that is not surprising, because we have seen quite a few employers kind of move away from that, or move away from employment screens just because of that cost. But in case you would like to utilize those in your program, I'm going to go ahead and have our team give some advice on how you might be able to mitigate some of those rising costs. So let's go ahead and start off with Nancy. Nancy, what tips can you give employers to reduce costs?
Well, there's a couple of options. One of those options could be to collect documentation from your candidate as part of your process. Collecting documentation for your candidate can be a little cumbersome for your candidate. However, it is an alternative to having to utilize any of those database providers for verification of employment. One of the struggles with collecting docs is that the validation or the authentication of that documentation that may be received, or getting pieces of documents. Candidates may provide a pay stub or a W-2. Pay stub may not cover the entire span of employment, or W-2 may not cover the whole history of employment. So there is an option to collect documentation. I know in our instance, we have some customers that elect to go that route, and it is an option. A secondary option to that collection of documentation is utilizing a service that the IRS offers, an IRS validation of employment. And through that IRS validation of employment, your candidate would authorize the approval to pull that information, and you're able to pull information directly from the IRS. There's still a cost associated with that, but it's a much lower cost than the database providers that you see out there. And the nice piece is that'll give you a full span of employment history processed by Social Security number, opposed to one at a time. But it is another option, and it is a reduced cost option to the database providers, and it is information that comes directly from the IRS. However, it is based on candidate approval, so the candidate needs to approve access to obtaining that information.
Thanks for sharing, Nancy. Yeah, and that does sound like that might be a viable solution, especially, when you take there's candidates have technology has come so far that it's easy to forge documents and stuff. So getting it directly from the source, that does seem like a better solution. How about you, Heidi? What tips could you provide on this topic?
Yeah, thank you. So another service that I know employers are moving to due to the rising cost of database access is professional references. With professional references, you can customize the questions that you want to have asked, which can be role specific and tailored to that specific role. Other questions and information that you can obtain from a professional reference, are behavioral questions, And that gauges like their work ethic, their teamwork and adaptability, which is more than what you're gonna get when you're just verifying the dates and title of an employment.
Thank you, Heidi. That's some really good advice as well. And you know, obviously employers need to validate that someone has the skill sets or has the work experience, you know, for the particular role that they are selecting them for. So it looks like there's some good viable alternatives if you know, verification of employment databases have just become too costly for an organization. So moving on to our next discussion topic. Leveraging technology for streamlined processes. And in today's world, there are a lot of options for utilizing technology to really streamline your processes and optimize them. And so let's go ahead and go to a poll question. Excuse me. So for our poll question, is your current ATS or human capital management system integrated with your screening provider's technology platform? We'll give just a moment for everyone to answer this question. So yes, you are, you know, your background screening program is currently integrated into your ATS or HCM platform. Or no, they are not integrated, or they're not yet integrated, but you do plan to integrate in the future, or you have an integration in process. So let's give everyone a moment to kind of define, you know, kind of where they stand currently as far as integration is concerned. Okay, and it looks like we may have had a little glitch with that poll, and we weren't able to capture responses. But I can tell you historically, about 50% of employers are integrated. Obviously, the size of the company often drives that. And so let's go ahead and talk a little bit about integration and how it can bring a lot of benefits to your program. So let's go ahead and start off with Nancy on this topic. So Nancy, would you like to share some feedback?
Sure. What's great about an integration is that it allows you to simplify your workflow. It allows you to have a standardized workflow that the entire team follows, gives you control over what services can be ordered, and it allows for a greater opportunity for compliance on the back end when the data is returned. So simplifying the workflow, meaning your folks, when they're ordering the background through the integration, they will have a set number of packages to order. Those are pre-approved packages that have been set in place ahead of time, and those packages can, of course, be by position with various degrees of requirements. You can push that through the integration. It'll populate over to the screening company side of the house. They'll complete the work, and then they're able to push those results back into the platform. It allows you to review those results in a common fashion so that your teams are ensuring that they're following the same kind of standards. When they're reviewing those background screening results, you can add flagging criteria. You can add different types of background screens that can land in different buckets. So by putting through that standardized process, that gives you greater compliance because your teams are now following the same standard for reviewing of those background screening results, and you're able to put them into the different categories and be able to take that information of we're good to hire, may need further review, or maybe you're going to pass on that candidate, but you're able to manage that process more easily and efficiently through an integration.
Thank you for sharing that. And you're right. In risk mitigation, managing risk through consistency is always a top goal. And that's something that an integrated platform definitely can assist in. So Heidi, can you share, since you obviously oversee a lot of integrations, can you share some, some benefits and details on integrations and how they can optimize programs?
Yeah, absolutely. So Nancy talked more about on the client side, the employer side, of how it optimizes that process. But it also is a time saver for a candidate as well. If you have a ATS or an HRIS system, you know, the candidate has already entered in their information within that system or uploaded a resume and had it, the system automatically parses it out correctly. So with an ATS, a lot of systems, when you initiate the background check in that ATS, that information comes directly into the background screening client's platform. So the candidate doesn't have to sit there and retype additional information or retype information that they had already previously inputted, which minimizes the amount of data entry that candidates have to do. And then most systems, whether that's, you know, your ATS or your client or your background screening platform provider's platform, most are mobile friendly. So this is really nice because they can do it on the go. They can do it on their cell phone and get it completed quicker than if they had to sit down at a computer and get it done.
Realized I put myself on mute while I cough for a moment. Thank you so much, Heidi. That is great feedback, and it does make the candidate experience much better. So let's go ahead and go on to our final discussion topic for the day. How do we enhance candidate experience and build trust through the onboarding process by having a great experience in background screening for candidates? So I'm going to go ahead and tee off our discussion on this with a final poll question. So how impactful is candidate experience in your current onboarding processes? And if everyone would just take a moment to share your feedback with us that's in attendance today, we'd greatly appreciate it. Your options are that it is not impactful, it is somewhat impactful, or it's very impactful. All right, great. And fortunately, I do believe that our software is working again for our polling. And so Danielle, can you go ahead and share the results of our poll? So we are somewhere between not impactful and very impactful. So it seems like in some organizations it's more impactful than others, but we will go ahead and share some tips on how to ensure optimal candidate experiences. And this time I think we'll go ahead and start off with Shannon as our Vice President of Client Experiences or Customer Experiences and, you know, long-term hard-serving member of the customer success world. I'm sure you've got some great tips here to share.
Well, as you might expect, yeah, this is a topic near and dear to my heart from both sides, right? From my position, but also from somebody who hires on a regular basis. So I've seen it both ways. And I think mainly transparency is key, right? You want to build rapport with them. You want them to know what to expect. You want them, and we've said that in a few different categories. So it goes a long way. You know, there's nothing worse as a candidate than feeling like you're in a black hole. You applied for a job and you have no idea what's going on beyond that, right? So giving them insight into what to expect through the whole process. What is your hiring process? What happens after the background screen? Who is your background screening provider? Who should they be receiving information from so that they know to look for it and know that it's, you know, the right thing to respond to? All of that is extremely important. You know, does your screening provider allow your candidates to reach out to them? So transparency on that side as well, right? Candidates, they have questions during their processes about the background screen, whether it's the process of completing the required information for their background screen and their compliance process, or whether it's about the report that a background screening company has generated. They may have questions. Does your screening provider allow you to have your candidates reach out to them directly for that transparency and that clear information from the source? Do you have a pathway for your candidate to reach out to your hiring staff if they have questions about the process or where they are in the process or what's going on from there? So again, I just say transparency, I think, is the biggest key to that.
That's some very, very good advice, Shannon. Thank you for sharing that. So I think we'll wrap up with Heidi here. So Heidi, obviously, you work with a lot of clients as they're coming through the implementation process, and I'm sure that ensuring that their candidates have a good experience is, top of mind for many of them. What advice can you share with us?
Yeah, and Shannon had some great tips. And the other one that you want to make sure that you have a clear communication and pathway is for candidates to dispute the information returned on their reports. Giving them the ability to know who to contact, what the process is, what can they dispute, what can't they dispute, and where they can go to dispute that information is very important for a candidate. So outlining that process, whether that's someone within your organization or a group, is best, and just making sure to provide a clear explanation of why that dispute process exists. And it's important in maintaining a fair and trustworthy recruitment process. So just outlining that process, making it detailed of how to initiate, who to contact, and as well as, providing transparency and giving that individual regular updates so that they know of the status of the dispute and any actions that need to be taken. So, always sometimes it's nice to have like an FAQ that you provide to candidates if they're wanting to do a dispute. They know exactly what they need to, the process that they need to follow.
That sounds like great advice, Heidi. And I'm sure also having those mobile-friendly, candidate-friendly, processes really probably help a lot too in helping that candidate, get through the process quickly and efficiently without a lot of, disruption to maybe their current job that they're working or their current daily lives. So thank you so much for sharing that advice with everyone. I think that's, very, very actionable items that people can implement into their programs. Well, we are running, I'm sorry.
Yeah, but I don't know that you can see me, sorry. I was
you'd like to share? I'd love to have you jump in.
I just wanted to add to Heidi's point. I think it's something to consider is, do you know your screening provider's dispute process and how your candidates can file a dispute, and what does that process look like? And if you don't, I highly advise that you ask those questions, because you do want that to be a smooth transition for your candidate, because background screening is, as much as we strive to be 100% accurate, disputes do happen, and things do get misreported from the court that get misreported on a background report. And so it's really important to have an avenue of where to go to dispute that information. So I would highly recommend checking in with your provider to understand how can an applicant file a dispute, and what does that look like from start to finish. And at the end of the day, we want it to be an easy process for the candidate, so that way they feel comfortable in the process. They've got a quick resolution. I know FCRA, the Fair Credit Reporting Act, gives you 30 days to complete that dispute process, but the sooner you can complete that, the sooner your candidate can get to work. So it's really important to maybe check that, and just so you know, and ask those questions about what your candidate will experience and who they can contact, and do they have someone they can contact while that dispute is happening, so that they feel comfortable and get that resolution at the end of the day.
Some very good advice, Nancy, and you're absolutely right. In fact, disputes are occurring more often than ever before because of the changes in like fair chance laws and that type of thing, where cases are getting expunged and that type of thing, and that just drives up the dispute rate. So having a good process to support candidates is vitally important. Thank you so much for sharing that. It sounds like, in thinking and listening to the totality of what everyone shared today, that really the key is talk to your background screening provider, have a partnership with them. The program you roll out, today may not be, the program that fits your needs 3 years down the line or 5 years down the line. And so do regular reviews with them and make sure that, you both are in alignment to provide the very best experience for your candidates and the highest amount of risk mitigation and management for your organization. So at that, we have covered all of our questions today. So let's go, or our topics today. Let's go ahead and go into some questions. Danielle, do we have any questions that anyone has shared with us today?
Yes. How long does it typically take to integrate an ATS platform?
Great question. Every ATS is different. So some ATSs we can get done within 48 to 72 hours, and some are going to be more complicated and take 2 weeks or longer. So really, every ATS is a little bit different.
And then the follow-up to that is it a cumbersome process in order to integrate the ATS platform?
Kind of with the same answer as previous. It depends on the platform. So some we have an integration where it's just a plug and play. So we just have to do a connection with the, maybe the ATS client number, enter that into our system, and then it's automatically connected. And then there's others that do take a little bit more and take some development work to get completed. So again, it does depend on the ATS.
But it's also a really good time to like revamp your program, as Cynthia was saying too, right? When you're talking to the provider about those integrations, and talk about, because you have to go through the whole workflow on those larger integrations that Heidi's talking about could take a little longer. So it's a good time to revamp your program and make sure it's doing what you want it to do too.
And if you have an ATS, make sure that you're asking your background provider if they have the capability to integrate. More than likely they do. So you can start having that conversation with your background screening provider and just seeing if they even have that capability to know if you want to take the next steps to connect it, because it does simplify your process by doing so.
And it can cut an immense amount of labor. I mean, today we're always looking for ways to cut time, to give us more time back into our schedules, from AI to integrations, and this is definitely one that can definitely give your staff some time back and make the process easier on your applicants. So that's a good question. Danielle, do we have any additional questions?
Just one more question, and it's in regards to the professional reference that you mentioned. You mentioned that we were able to have a customized question. How customized are those questions? Was the
right?
I think that, in summary, is what that question was.
Every background screening company is going to be different in regards to how customized the questions can be. Here at AccuSource HR, we do, receive those questions from our clients. We do have our legal department review them, making sure that they are appropriate for us to ask. And if so, then we can implement them into the process.
Perfect. And Nancy, since you oversee a lot of those references, anything you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, so references are a great resource, and we get more, just a little bit of inside peek behind the curtain. We do get more responses from more recent references, meaning more recent employment references. But it can provide some really good insight, and you can ask some very pointed questions about their work history, about how they take criticism, are they a good team player? So you can really develop that, and you can develop that by package of services. So meaning if you've got a executive level package, you can tailor questions to what that position might fill. If you've got a mid-management package, you can customize those questions for that kind of role. And then vice versa as you go down the line of the different types of package requirements that you have. But you can build it and customize it to fit what your need is. And we do see that. We do see those questions vary based off of position that's being hired and filled for. So it is a good alternative to the employment piece, but what's nice is being able to customize those questions and really ask some pointed things that are applicable to your business environment.
And a great benefit of employment references versus or professional references over a standard, employment verification is that really today with employment verifications, really the best we generally get is dates of employment and what their position was held, that was held, or their most recent position that was held. A lot of times it's not like a historical perspective, but it's the most recent one. Through a professional reference, you can actually get deeper than that and get more information, which can really help you determine that, did everything that this person convey in their resume and through the interviewing process, is all of that validated, so that you've got a good opportunity to ensure that when that person starts in their role, they're going to be exactly the fit that you need for that position.
And you're avoiding third-party fees.
Yes.
You avoid all third-party fees, and you can do that by email, and it can come right by phone, and be able to complete that electronically. It's a very quick and easy way to gather information on a candidate's employment history.
Yes, and that's a very good point, because I don't know a single organization today that is not looking at, maximizing their budget to the greatest extent possible. So it is very true. It can be very, very economical way of finding a lot of information out about your candidate. So yes. As Danielle indicated, that was our last question today. I want to take this opportunity to thank NHGA for hosting this webinar today, and special thanks to Heidi, Shannon, and Nancy for joining me here today and sharing their knowledge and experience. I don't want to make us sound old, but we got about 80 years all together here. So this is an awful lot of experience. And so, we're always open to sharing, what we know about background screening. So while we came on today to share this webinar, please contact us if there's any, there's any additional questions we can answer, or if there's any way that we can help you ensure that you have the most optimal background screening program possible.